Home to the largest mountains in the world, with an average altitude of 4,900 meters, Tibet has been home to an ancient civilization for thousands of years. Buddhists have always sought peace in these mountains, but what did the Nazis look for in Mount Kailash? With high mountains, rivers, fertile soil and rich mineral deposits, Tibet offers a very rich outlook, but the Tibetan monks who live here and stand out with their orange clothes can spend the whole day with a few glasses of water and a slice of bread. The word Buddha, which means to become conscious, to enlighten, to awaken, to realize, in Sanskrit, forms the basis of the thousands of years of philosophy here. This is how the story begins. Legend has it that a monk saw a sick and decaying body with a high fever and decided to find a way out of all this suffering. At the age of 29, when a young man named Siddhartha Buddha gave birth to his only son, he left his son and his wife in the city where they lived, left the city and set out to find a way out of suffering and pain. He sets out with high hopes and spends 6 whole years on the path. For 6 years he wandered like an ascetic in the Ganges Valley, met with famous religious leaders of the time, carefully followed their methods, slept a few hours a day, practiced asceticism, but after a while he realized that these religions and their knowledge were not for his purpose and gave up. He gives up 6 years of labor with a decision he made one night. After giving up what he had learned for 6 years, he began to search for his own path, primarily through meditation techniques. Other religious teachings were too extreme for the 35-year-old Buddha. His own teaching and meditation method is actually a technique for finding the middle way in all kinds of problems. The young Buddha, who is estimated to have been born in 563 BC, becomes famous in the region with his teachings and techniques. He is now a spiritual leader, a wise teacher. His teachings were compiled and written down by his disciples who came together as the Sangha community just before his death. Buddhists are guided by these teachings. The Buddha, who is believed to have died in 483 BC, left behind many secrets. He spent his life searching for the truth between life and death with a calmness that pushed the limits. Immediately after his death he was sanctified, recognized by Buddhists all over the world as the awakened Buddha with great secrets. Buddha is considered sacred in many religions. The Baha'is consider him a prophet, although some Hindu texts accuse him of apostasy. Born in what is now Nepal, Buddha was the son of the king of the Sakya tribe. According to some, the reason for his rebellion was the splendor and extravagance of his father's court ceremonies. So he went into seclusion, leaving behind his home, his children and his wife. A life of plenty and abundance bored him and he went and lived in poverty. Buddha had everything in the palace, next to his father the king. In fact, away from all the problems of the world, he literally had everything. His father wanted him to be king too. He did not allow his son to wander far from the royal palace, lest he see old age, sickness and death on the streets. But the Buddha realized that wealth and luxury brought no happiness, that people suffered and that his previous life was meaningless. Buddhism, which originated in India, is today a religion with more than 500 million followers around the world. It first emerged in India and then spread over time in Southeast and East Asia, in countries such as China, Japan, Korea, Mongolia, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Thailand and Tibet. Believed to explain the sources of pain, suffering and dissatisfaction in life and to show ways to eliminate them, the main framework of Buddhism's teachings is meditation. In these unique moments, Buddhists experiment with methods of introspection. The Tibetan king Srongtsen Khampo, who ascended the throne in Tibet in the 7th century AD, also embraced this religion. Thanks to the king, this belief system spread to the majority of the population. The worship of nature, self-restraint and moral values are the foundations of the Buddhism system. Tibetan Buddhism, according to the grouping of today's scholars, is considered as Northern Buddhism and has believers in many countries, especially Tibet, Mongolia, Bhutan and India. Those who followed in the footsteps of Prince Buddha, those who embraced Buddhism, began to live like him. Tibetan monks who wanted to gain enlightenment and wisdom like the Buddha came to the fore in this teaching. Buddhist monks wear different garments, ranging from the saffron robes worn by monks in Sri Lanka and Thailand and the robes worn by Tibetan lamas to head scarves. The saffron robes worn by monks last for centuries. Buddhists chose orange partly out of necessity. Because orange was the only paint available at the time and they decided to continue using that color. With the exception of Tibetan monks who used burgundy, Buddhist followers in many parts of Southeast Asia stuck with orange and it remains the color of choice today. As a prince raised in a palace, the Buddha actually hated splendor. The robes worn by Buddhists symbolize a detachment from materialism and a bit of ostentation. Monks also shave their hair as a symbol of the separation of simplicity and materialism. The Buddha is thought to have worn a modest robe made of patched clothes donated by people during his lifetime. Many surviving statues, paintings and carvings of the Buddha show him wearing a robe draped loosely over his body, usually with the right side of his shoulder open. However, due to climatic and geographical factors, the robes worn by Mahayana Buddhist monks varied considerably. The monks wore beautifully embroidered silk robes. However, the majority of monks, many of whom came from Japan, China and Korea, wore simpler robes with a simple collar that hung around the neck.